Hi, my name is Ben. I'm an outdoor coordinator here at Dickinson College, and I am going to teach how to pack a pack. There are three things you need to think about when you're packing a pack: accessibility, balance, and compression. You want anything that you're going to be accessing rather quickly, like your map or your compass or maybe a phone, to be able to quickly accessible. So maybe something that goes into the top of your pack, and things that are lower on the priority list, something that you're going to use maybe only once a day, like your sleeping bag, go at the bottom. Next up is balance, making sure that it's not backwards balancing, forwards balancing, or going to the right or left. Because when you're walking, you don't want to be straining one side as you're, meandering over to the left because your pack is pushing too much on the right side. And then the last thing is compression. You want to be able to fit everything you need into a pack. I'm going to walk you through the parts of the pack. First and foremost, we have our body. So this is where the majority of the things you're going to need are. You're going to have your feet, which is usually the place where you put your sleeping pad or any other sort of like outside item that you can just have. Maybe it's usually long, awkward objects of things, so maybe some tent poles can go here. Tarps typically can be rolled up here. And then you have your brain, and these are things that you need quick access to, and these are things that you usually want to keep protected. You want something that's pretty small and dense, but not the heaviest object you have to go at the bottom. The heaviest objects go in the middle. So sleeping bags usually fit that criteria pretty well. So I usually put my sleeping bag at the very bottom. So sleeping bags can get wet, and they are not pleasant when they are wet, as you'll start to lose heat rather quickly. So in order to prevent that, what we do is we put the trash bag in the stuff sack and then put the sleeping bag inside the trash bag. That way it can compress and it can fit in the bag, the backpack. Usually they fit best when they're horizontal as opposed to vertical. Additionally, some packs occasionally have a zipper on the bottom, so if you're lazy, you can just zip that open and then slide it in and then zip it closed. And that is the first step of many for packing a pack. So the next important thing is personal gear, or clothing more specifically, as you want to sort of fill in the cracks around the sleeping bag that it creates, given that it's sort of a spherical-ish object. When it goes in, it can create some nooks and crannies that you want to get rid of. Additionally, it isn't quite at the point where you want the heaviest objects, so usually clothing fits in to void the gaps a little bit before you put in anything like food, which is usually your heaviest objects. What I tend to do is I'll take the trash bag, but generally you don't want your clothing to be wet, and stuff that into the backpack around your sleeping bag a little bit, trying to get into the nooks and crannies. Then taking whatever clothing you might have and sort of pushing it in and filling it out. You want to sort of be able to see from the outside of your pack that it is getting filled up into those cracks. So you should be able to feel sort of where you're putting them on the outside. And the last thing you want to do is get any air out you might have left, so that way you can compress more things in. The next object you're probably going to pack is usually your tent or your food. It's usually the heaviest object, as it's usually placed right in the small of your back, is where we're at about right now. So that's where you want your heaviest objects to be. With tents, we want to make sure that we're breaking things apart so that we can compress it down inside the backpack as we go. So there might be a rain fly or tarp, so you can sort of smush that around. It doesn't really matter if these things get wet, as they will usually dry in the sun, and also they're designed to get wet to protect you from the rain. If you're hiking with a friend, you can also have them take part of the gear. That way you're splitting the weight a little bit more evenly. I usually take tent poles and stick them down along the side. Lastly, I usually put cookware or anything that's sort of like metallic or could possibly be pushed in sort of weird dimensions at the top of any sort of cookware or on top of any food or any kind of tent stuff. I'll also usually take the lighter and put it on the outside with the tent poles. Next, I'll usually put things like water purification or any sort of water filling device. This is a dromedary. It's usually where we put larger amounts of water. So if you're going for longer extended hikes, it's usually good to have a dromedary full of water. That way you can fill up your water bottles, maybe have enough water for other people too for your longer days. I'll usually fill that up and then put that on the very top of my pack so that it's easy to access. The last thing I usually put inside my pack, inside the main body of the pack, is a med kit. This is important because you want to have it so it's quick access and it's below the brain so that it's covered and protected. Lastly, there's a buckle inside the pack. It's usually just there so you can sort of manage things a little bit easier, and if you have a dromedary, you can connect it actually up to this buckle so that it hangs and is a little bit nicer packed in there. Next, you seal it up by bringing down the straps. We don't want to get the straps out of the way, so I'll tie a little bit of a knot. And just keep them in place. Next, we start thinking about the outside of the pack and the brain of the pack. What goes in the brain of the pack is usually things I want to access the most. Maybe it's a rain layer, maybe it's my toiletries kit, or maybe it's a compass and a map that I am occasionally looking at to make sure I'm going in the right direction. There's usually a zipper on the back here that you can just quickly access, put things in. Headlamp, always good to know exactly where it is, because if it gets dark, you want to be able to find the thing that will allow you to find other things. Occasionally you'll have electronics like a phone or something else. I usually put them in a Ziploc bag and then shove that into the brain of the pack as well, because those are usually small items that you want to have quick access to. Sometimes you'll have an axe, sometimes you'll have some bear mace, or something else that you need access to, maybe quickly, or maybe you just need something that doesn't quite fit inside the body of the pack, something sort of vertical like tent poles. So I'll usually put it on the outside of the pack. So it's important to make sure that your bear mace or any other fluids like fuel do not get mixed in with your water. So that's why I usually keep it to the opposite side of your water, along with things like your tent poles, maybe some stakes, that kind of stuff. And I'll take my water and put it on the opposite side. The last thing you're going to think about is your sleeping pad, which is usually going to go on the outside of your pack. Generally, it doesn't quite matter if these get wet because you can sort of just flap them off and then all the water comes off. And then they usually act as a little bit of a foot for your pack. So they sit here and it's all perfectly balanced and won't fall over or anything. And that is how you pack a pack.